How will the Packers live life in a post-Davante Adams world? How will they lean more on A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones? Dusty Evely, our pal with the X's and O's knowledge, is here to break it all down.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how, and thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Dusty Evely, the man with the coach's clicker, who knows clip draw as well as anybody. I was on his stream last week. This is a little home and home. I did his show. He's doing mine. We love to talk to him about ball. We got a little listener requested conversation in parts of it here. So our Summer Friday series is almost complete. And we're going to continue to have interviews throughout the season. This is not over by any means. We still have our same sort of workflow. Some of us who are new to the program out there, Expert Tuesdays. We've got Lily Zhao on Wednesdays, or at least we did. I have to relock that down, but we are working on that. Contract negotiations are ongoing. We have our crossover on Thursday, and then our live show on Friday. We will go live on Fridays, 5:30 Central Time, I believe, is what we're going to do this season. So everyone can be out of work. Hopefully, they can get a beverage, hopefully, and we can talk some Packers. It should be a lot of fun. Before we get to Dusty, let's talk about our friends at Bet Online, your #1 source for all of your pro and college football betting needs this season. Find all the latest football developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week lines. Packers still favored. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check on all of your favorite sports scores, events, including baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Joining me now, one of my favorites, Dusty Evely, the X's and O's guru. I had an X's and O's pun that I had ready that I forgot. So it was probably bad. It was a dad joke, but we're two dads here talking ball. So we're allowed to make some bad dad jokes, I think, right?
It's expected of us, is my understanding. Yeah.
It's part of the brand. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a really fun offseason to dig into concepts and the tape, and you and I had a lot of fun. At least I had fun. I hope you did too. On the stream, talking play action concepts, which we saw Jordan Love running a lot of. Did you think that we got any insight on what this offense is going to look like in the preseason, or do you think that like Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers bifurcation is big enough that we don't really get to see the real deal?
I always had such a hard time with that. I mean, even if that was Aaron Rodgers, I have such a hard time with like what you want to show in the preseason, right? 'Cause it's at some point it becomes well, I know that you know that I know that you know type of thing. Like, are you showing this to put it on tape that you're never going to run it again? Or are you going to do it? And then are you playing with it's everything. So it's such a mind game with that stuff. I do think some of it, I think it opens a window somewhat. And I think a lot of what we talked about, I know we talked about, they didn't run it, but we talked about, Y-Leak, which is, kind of the white whale. They've run twice in the floor and hope they run it again. But we talked about this at some point last year. You and I had a conversation about kind of the rise of some of those half boot concepts they're running out of play action because of the way that end is crashing on that rollout, that you have to have a counter for that. And there kind of has been a lot of half boot stuff. And so we saw some of that. I mean, I guess not exactly, but the incompletion to Toure was kind of like a play action boot, but it was kind of like a half. Like he didn't quite boot all the way. I don't think he got just past the tackle, essentially. So you've got this kind of even the boot stuff. Some of that you're pulling up a little short. So again, I don't know how much to take from that, but I do think just based on the way defenses are. I mean, the wide zone stuff. I mean, it's now more widespread than it had been before, right? Like, I mean, the Vikings were running it before. They're really going to be running it now with O'Connell. I mean, it's making its way throughout the league.
They're going to put the pedal to the metal on that one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So much. And so defenses, I think, are going to lead more into that crash the edge and take that away, which leads to more of the half boot stuff, which we saw some of the preseason. So I think, I don't think you can take a ton away from that, but I think you can see a kernel in there of likely what the counter is going to be to how defenses are kind of adjusting to that stuff.
One thing that I do think is going to translate, just because it's going to have to translate, is the renewed emphasis on play action to create shot plays. It was a huge piece of what they did in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And they just couldn't get it going last year. Like it just did not work the same way for whatever reason. And I think teams were not respecting the run fakes the same kind of way. And so they're going to have to get that fixed with the run game. And this is where I want to go with this. The Amari Rodgers in the backfield, split gun, more two back sets. How do you like? And this was partially requested by longtime listener of the show, Jen Curtin. She was like, guys, please get into the nitty gritty of the 21 personnel. But like, to me, when you're looking at how to exploit these two high defenses, if you're going to sit back in too high, you have to have a counter. The Packers were not able to run the ball out of it last year. I think this is a way to create those matchups this year out of those two back sets, whether it's Jones, whether it's Dillon, whether it's Amari Rodgers, and eventually whether it's Kylan Hill and some of these other guys. Can you explain why that could work theoretically against the two high defense?
Yeah, I mean, so you're trying to bait them. So there's a give and take there. I mean, if we go back to when they were using Jones initially, think of like that KC game, was it 2019, 2020?
2019, yeah.
Yeah, when he went nuts and then
when they made the whole plane out of Aaron Jones.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, he's running sluggos out there, which he can do. I mean, I say this a lot, but it's like, well, he's the number of years into his NFL career at this point, and then he had college, but he was a receiver in high school. So he's got some of those skills, and we've seen that. I mean, he's got, again, not a whole lot of running backs run a convincing sluggo on the outside, and he'll run some really nuanced routes when they ask him to. And so what was happening up with or actually at that KC game, and before that was you run Aaron Jones out of that, and they drop a linebacker out with him. You not necessarily base package, but nickel package or whatever, and then it's Aaron Jones man to man with a linebacker, and so you have some of that. Well, then defense is adjusting. They start bringing the defensive back. What you should be able to do is you should be able to run into light boxes with that, because if you bring a defensive back in and then you motion, if you picture the way I picture it is two guys in the backfield, you motion one of them out. If that's a linebacker, then you've got Aaron Jones with a linebacker outside. Now picture Aaron Jones outside and there's a cornerback. You bring him in. Now you've got a cornerback in the box, and so it's a favorable running situation. Basically, what you're doing. So with the way defenses will not counter that is we'll stick a linebacker there, but maybe we'll walk a safety down, something like that. And so that's one of the ways I think you can get them out of some of that too high is if they're looking to stay in some more of that base packages, they leave that linebacker on so you can't run. And I think as far as like the lack of running in the Packers, I think that's a little more nuanced than just this. This is very high level. But you can leave that linebacker on, then you can walk that. If you're basically destroying them with that, if you prove, okay, we can run on this or we can pass out of this, they run that safety down, and now you got single high looks, and you can do a little more explosive stuff on the outside of that. Think of, he's not here anymore, but think of all the Davante Adams slot fades. Those things don't work against too high. And so you're trying to get them out of those too high looks in a single high. If you can prove that you can run effectively or pass effectively with those two back sets, that safety's forced to come down once you put that guy back in the backfield, because you're not leaving a cornerback in the box. You walk a safety down for that, and you can generate explosives out of that. So that's some high level and likely a vast overgeneralization, but that's a kind of overriding thought to that.
I think that's a good generalization. So I think we almost have to back up, because as I'm, been looking at this team and how I think defenses are going to play them, are we super sure teams are going to do the too high thing? Like, given the receivers that the Packers have, Al Lazard, is not going to, I don't think, scare, at least in the short term, anyone deep. Randall Cobb is not that guy, and Sammy Watkins hasn't been that guy in 5 years, probably. Okay, at least 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, how scared are they going to be off the jump of Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson? Isn't the like smart MO thing for a defense to say, we're going to man you guys up, play single high, and say, you can't run the ball. We dare you to beat our guys one-on-one on the outside?
Yeah. I mean, basically, here's an 8-man box. What are you going to do about it? And
Right.
I mean, to some extent, even with the play action, I know this is, the how a linebacker group responds to play action, because the whole idea of a lot of those play action concepts is you pull linebackers up and then you attack what's behind them. That's a lot of what they'll do. And what the 49ers did, I don't want to bring up this game, but 49ers did in the divisional round was they said, we don't care about that because we think our guys up front can beat you guys enough to where we're not going to react. And so as linebackers aren't pulled up, those things aren't open back there. And so I think, again, it's easy for me to sit back and say, like, I think teams will do that, but like linebackers are taught to like respect the run since like Pop Warner. So like that's not necessarily going to be the case, but I do think just
not every team has Fred Warner either.
Yeah, not every team has Fred. That's a good point. Thank God for that, right? Yeah, I mean, I think more teams may lean into a little bit more, shuffle step towards the line, take away some of those play action. Basically, like, can you run on our front four? And until they can prove that they can do that with the front 4 or 5, that 4-man front with a linebacker or 5-man front or whatever, until you prove you can do that, there's no need to walk anyone down. So, I mean, you're as up in this as I am with some of this. You look at the numbers and you say it's more efficient to pass, and you want to pass. Like, you still have to run. And I know the numbers say there's studies of, was it 5+ years ago? I think Ben Baldwin had the thing about you don't necessarily have to establish a good running game to make play action good. You just have to prove you are willing to run out of these, because you have to get them to react. You're drawing the reaction more than anything. At a certain point, though, like, you do, just based on who they're putting in the box. Like, if they can stop you with 5, they don't have to do anything else. And so they can run too high, and if you can't run on them. And so they're going to have to run. And that's the question for me then is, can you run out of the 2-back set? I mean,
I think the biggest thing with the offensive line injuries, like the Packers weathered the storm last year without Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari. Yes. Aaron Rodgers was the MVP. Yes, Aaron Rodgers plus time equals success. But last year they did it because of Davante Adams, because they could throw it against too high, which is kind of not supposed to be what you're supposed to be able to do. But because Davante is a cheat code, they were able to do that and just be surgical, because Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. To your point, I think you have to be able to punish them for playing these light boxes. And that's why I'm wondering, Dusty, could we finally see Aaron Rodgers, and we saw Jordan Love do it, run some of these traditional RPO looks where we're talking about post-snap reading the conflict defender to get to make these linebackers move? Okay, linebackers, you're going to chill. All right, then we're going to call these plays where we're reading you and we're going to make you make difficult decisions on the fly.
He's done it. I think Rodgers, he's never talked about this, so I have no idea. I think he doesn't like it. I don't think he does either. In the LaFleur era, I can recall, I'm going to give him 3 or 4 that they've run that way. I can distinctly remember 2. And neither of them were complete. One was this past year. I can't remember who it was against, and it was a skinny post to Lazard in the red zone. Perfect throw, read the conflict defender, great call, and Lazard drops it. The other one was in 2019 against the Broncos that Rodgers pulls because the linebacker bites, but Von Miller's on the edge. Von Miller jumps in the passing lane. Rodgers is forced to pull it down. I think eats a sack or runs for a 1-yard gain or something like that. So again, those are the 2 I remember off the top of my head. And if he had any more than that, it was not more than 4, and they ended roughly the same way. So if I were to guess, I mean, I've been banging it. I think you and I are both in the same boat here. Been banging the table for more of those vertical pushing RPOs. I'm reading a book right now on RPOs. So like, how can they do some of this stuff? You read that conflict defender. Some of you've always been making them wrong with the Packers game, but it's always been a numbers game with those horizontal stretching ones. I want those vertical pushing ones, and I think they've got the personnel to do it. And to your point, I think they're going to have to generate some of the offense this year. I don't think Rodgers likes them. And I think as long as he has a say in the offense, as big as the say in the offense he does, I don't think we're going to see him. And I hope I'm wrong on that. I hope they come out. Hope the first call this year is like, if Tunyon's healthy, just a little skinny post, and you read the conflict linebacker, and it's a little. I've been watching just just highlights of tight end pop passes in the offseason because I have a sick and disturbed mind.
Yep.
And that's first snap of the year. I want to see that. I just think Rodgers doesn't like him. So I'm not holding my breath that we're going to see that until he's gone. I don't think.
Listen, Rodgers didn't like play action either, and didn't like pre-snap motion either. There was just a really good piece by Kevin Clark in the Ringer about how Matt LaFleur had to convince Aaron Rodgers to use motion. And there was a great anecdote in there about how Matt LaFleur basically had to bribe Rodgers with some tempo work so that they could get to the motion stuff. And, all of a sudden the tempo stuff is not working. And LaFleur's like, can we do the motion thing now? And he finally sees, okay, there's value in this. And that's a really cool insight, I think, into their relationship because Aaron Rodgers trusts Matt LaFleur enough to prove it. I don't think you're right, Matt. Prove it. All right. You're right. Okay. Then let's do it. And I think it takes a healthy and mature relationship. It takes two healthy and mature people to work that way. Because if you're Aaron Rodgers, you could just say to Matt LaFleur, no, we're not doing this. I'm right and you're wrong. And he doesn't. And I think that's a really cool part of their relationship. I asked Ben Fennell this, and you and I have, I think, talked about it in other different ways offline and on Twitter and other venues that we have. How do you think this offense, just based on some of the stuff that they're already doing, I don't think they need to invent new stuff to fill in for what's Davante Adams is missing. And Aaron Rodgers said, we're not really changing anything. It's all stuff that's already here. We're just going to either do it differently, or we're going to do it more, or we're going to do it better. So what do you think will change in terms of what they'll lean on with Davante in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I talked about this. I have a hard time remembering. I may have been talking to a wall. I have no idea. But I know there's
Urban will do
quote,
that, Dusty. We've all been there.
I think I'm doing that now. The quote, the quote that's been going around that I think LaFleur said or Rodgers said or something was last year. 80% of the concepts went through Adams, something to that effect, which is just
Rodgers just repeated it to Kevin Clark in that article.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you think on its face, that's insane. That's insane. But a lot of what they'll do is it's designed. He's the first read, or a lot of that they run that trips to one side or quads, basically the overloaded. So you've got 3 or 4 receivers on one side, and Adams is the guy on the back side. And you're running a concept to the front side. So you're running a concept with your 3 or 4 guys, and you've got your dagger or spot or whatever it is you're running, and then he's the ISO guy on the backside. You're saying you got a 3-way go. You're a slant. You're a hitch. You're a go route. Something like that. Beat your guy however he's leveraged. And if we like the leverage, and I know what you're going to do, I'm throwing to you. That doesn't change. Like to your point, the offense is still the offense. It's what that backside guy is doing, what you're doing to accommodate for Adams. And that's good. Defenses would take that away in the playoffs, and it kind of bit them a little bit. But I mean, so when you say 80% of it goes through that offense, that's true and false. Like you said, it's not an overhaul of the offense. It's just an overhaul of how you're looking at the offense. And so that's been the thing I've been thinking about this offseason has been that you're not getting out of quads. You're not getting out of those looks. You're still going to have that ISO backside guy, and that ISO backside guy is not Davante Adams. So what does he do? And I think just based on how they have it, based on the guys they have, I think you see some more gives on jet. Some of the jet sweep stuff. I think you see some more gives on that. I think you see some more designed wide receiver screens, not necessarily like the RPO bubble stuff, but designed wide receiver screens to get, say, Christian Watson in space. And I think for those quad sets, those overload sets, I think you see that back guy is just your more pure speed guy. He's not Davante Adams. He's not your technician, because you have to. If you think about it, if you got I'm talking to you, you know this. If you've got your overloaded set, you've got 3 guys to one side, you got 1 guy to one side. The defense, you need the defense to respect the 3, because if they don't, you got them beat there. So how do you do that? Is they've got to respect the guy on the other side. And so if basically they think we can overload this side with our defenders, and we got 1-on-1 on the backside, like the concept side is tougher to get, because you've got your safety capping everything essentially. So you need that backside guy to do something. And that guy's not Davante Adams. Well, that guy can beat you with speed. And so I think we're going to see a lot of, not up front, because he's not really done much, but Christian Watson, Dobbs, maybe even Tunyon, anyone who like you can muscle, because we've seen Tunyon do some of that stuff in the past. I think we're going to see more kind of speed physicality on that outside with a lot more go routes and some of the stuff that Adams has done in the past. That was a rambling answer. I don't know if that's what you're looking for. That's been my thought in this.
I liked it. I actually think that's why Touré's on the team and Juwan Winfrey is not, because he is more explosive vertically. And they know that they need that. I think in order, like we talked about a concept that they ran a couple times in that Saints game, that is a play action shot play. And one of the things that we talked about on your stream was it was the kind of play that requires details, but not high end route running, because it wins because of the leverage that it creates on the defense. And like Romeo Doubs has a really nice release package. Mm-hmm. He's not a high-level route runner yet. Christian Watson, we don't really know anything about what he can do on the field right now, but he had a limited route tree in college. He went to the Senior Bowl and showed some more on in one-on-ones and in some of the team stuff. But like, we'll see what that looks like, and then we sort of know what the other guys are bringing to bear there. But Juwan Winfrey and Romeo Doubs running these. Whether it's dagger, whether it's Yankee, some of these, what are essentially 2-man shot play routes, don't require high-level route running, but they do require details. We talked about running at the safety to create this conflict, being closer together, condensing the routes to give safeties problems. Like, these are the kinds of things that they're going to have to do to find ways to create these explosives. When we talk about 21, you, me and Ben Fennell need to like make t-shirts or something with either Lil Sebastian or Genuine or both for the pony package. I would love for them to run that RPO that they sort of killed the Rams with, where you can either give to AJ Dillon. My listeners are sick of hearing me say this. This is like my favorite play that the Packers run, or you have that swing screen to Aaron Jones. And I think they're going to run it with Amari Rodgers and Aaron Jones and Amari Rodgers and AJ Dillon and AJ Dillon and Aaron. Like, I think there's so many ways they could do with Randall Cobb if they wanted. They could do with Christian Watson if they wanted.
Yes.
What do you think 21, because we have been hearing all summer, this is going to be a big part of their offense. What do you think 21 allows them to do differently this year?
It's funny because we say 21, but like, I think Amari Rodgers is a big part of that. What's technically is 11. We talked about this recently. We talked about this past week. Has been like, that's a pony package look with a wide receiver back there. Right. So like, it's not technically 21, but like for all intents and purposes, it's 21. But yeah, I mean, I think
you're making the defense declare. That's why it's such a useful thing to do, is because it's 11 personnel technically, but now he's in the backfield. So how are you going to play him? And if you can hand him the ball, well, now do you have to play him with a linebacker?
Like, Amari Rodgers ripped like a 7-yard run or something. Like, if he can read a block, he becomes dangerous, and then you can do some of that stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think it changes a lot of the math. Again, like, if you're looking at a team that you're trying to run out of too high, or you're trying to run into a light box, like you're trying to either, the whole idea is removing a guy from the run fit or creating a mismatch on the outside. With a linebacker on a wide receiver, or a linebacker on a running back. If you're looking 21 personnel, like, that's what you're trying to do. You're what's our advantageous situation? How can we create an advantageous situation here? And I think that's with some of the personnel they have. And that's why, I mean, the speed helps, because it causes the deep part of the field to respect you, even if maybe you don't necessarily deserve respect yet, just because like, all it takes is one false step and you're 5 yards down the field. Right. But yeah, I think it's you're creating, with some of the stuff on the backfield too, you're creating angles. We saw, this is a little too on the nose, but think of like an angle route. Some of the angle routes they scored touchdowns with last year. Some of those choice routes, which is, you break, I don't know, like the 90-degree angle, 45-degree angle, whatever, out of the backfield. You read the leverage and then you go from there. Like, you make the guy wrong, which then you can do if you're creating mismatches in that way as well. And so I think we're going to see some more of those. Like I said, maybe some of those overloads. We got the kind of a 3-by-2 look, or a 3-by-1 with a running back in the backfield, where the running back then has a choice route against a linebacker, something like that, which you can do, because then if you read that beforehand, we've got an advantageous run look this way, and you're not it's not an RPO because you're declaring this pre-snap, but you got those 2 running backs back there. What does the box look like? What is our leverage? If we run this guy on, an angle route, do we have leverage there? If not, then we can that, and we've got the run call here. So I think you're basically, all it is, that's a lot of words, a lot of which probably I confuse myself. You're trying to change the math in the box is essentially what you're doing. You're trying to, I try to look at it as like, you're trying to create advantageous run looks for yourself. If you don't look like that, then you have an advantageous pass run. And with a guy like AJ Dillon, who has shown that he can catch passes, that was the knocking him out of college. He can catch passes. And Aaron Jones, who is a gifted receiver. You've got 2 guys who can do that, one a little better than the others. And you throw Amari Rodgers into the mix. My guy, Amari Rodgers. I'm glad we're talking about him. That is, again, you have to prove you can run with him. But if you can, all you're doing, man, you create those angles. Just create those angles. You take the one that looks the best to you. And I think they can do that with the package they have.
I don't know why Packer fans have been so quick to just say Amari Rodgers sucks and will always suck and cannot be useful in this offense, but that is the nature of fandom sometimes. I get it. I have been saying I think this will be the return to what I, in 2020, kept calling the modern NBA offense that they were running. It was layups, free throws, and threes. A lot of short passes, a lot of deep shots, and then just the free stuff. Just give me the free stuff, the easy boots, the defined reads. I think we're going to get back to that essentially because they have to. And we will be following all the stuff that you are doing as you break it down every week because you do it as well as anyone. Let my listeners know where they can find all of the stuff that you are doing throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, if you can follow me on Twitter, that's where I have everything. It's at Dusty Evely. I write weekly at Cheesehead TV, a couple weekly things at Pack Report, and I've got dustyevely.substack.com that I'm trying to do a dedicated thing every week going through the year where I'm tracking their RPO usage, which I don't know, man, fingers crossed it's more vertical stuff. So it's not just here's a bubble, here's a flat. I want to be more interesting than that. So yeah, but I'll be shouting about it from the rooftops on Twitter. So if you follow me there, I won't shut up about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Dusty. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks to Dusty. Awesome to talk to him. Another Summer Friday is complete. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Ultimate Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, that is me, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combined into one Ultimate NFL Preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. All right, back next week, having some fun. It is almost time for the actual games to start, which means we are having the most fun we can possibly have because Packer football for real on the field, regular season, the games that count in the standings. We've almost made it. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to hit us up on the Locked On Packers fan hotline, you can do that 920-341-3775 to stay Locked On Packers.